Well, I'm back on the same day that I did the unboxing, unwrapping with the phone. I'm now on the camera on the computer, although I'm holding the camera with the mini tripod at the moment because I need to move in on this. When I opened this thing, I set aside the paperwork thinking it was just a invoice from John, and it turns out it's an article from QST magazine from 1976. Actually, the article was written in 76, and it is a plan to build this power supply. So apparently, the gentleman, Mr. K3NPL, built it based on the plans from the QST magazine from 1976, and you can see the author there is this ain't focusing too well, but Charles Carroll, W1GQO. That's a big 12 volts. QPMers and FMers turn on. 12 volts at 10 amps should handle it. And he didn't exactly follow the plan on here. I read through the article off screen when I discovered it and decided I'd do another video. The schematic is slightly different. The transformer is a little different. He has a 16 volt 8 amp transformer with two outputs at 8 amps and 16 volts. This called for a T1 T3 6.3 volts at 10 amps, and then they tied those together to make 12, I believe. So it's slightly different, and he probably didn't do all the resistors and the transistors and that the same. I did notice his big gigantic filter cap. This one calls for let's see, it's sort of in the middle of my screen, but it's not focused. Let me see if I can make that focus by just filling the paper up. Okay, so if you can see C1, you see 5,000 microfarad at 50 volt, and the one in here is 8,000 at 75 volts. So I'm pretty sure the C1 is the big massive one we're talking about here. So he made some changes, probably based on what he had to use. Being that he was a broadcast engineer, I'm going to guess he found that thing out of some old equipment. Who knows? It's a massive capacitor. So this is from QST magazine, August 1976, and it's the plans to build this very power supply. So that is really cool. I couldn't leave well enough alone. I went through the parts box and I found a switch. This is the bad switch, and it has no continuity across it. Both sides, it's a double-sided switch. I checked both. Neither one has continuity. I could have tried to open it, but it's one of them sandwich switches with rivets in it and not at all easy to open and not probably worth fixing. So I'll show you what I've thrown in here. I had a switch on hand, which is a new one that I got from Radio Shack when they closed. I just bought a whole bunch of stuff out of their parts drawers. The shaft is slightly shorter, so when I put the front back on, I'm not going to be able to put a nut on the outside of it, but it will fit flush against there with no problem. So not a big deal. And I wanted to show you something else underneath while I have this open that I noticed. I'm turning it around. I mean, this guy knew how to build stuff. This is a homemade aluminum chassis. It's got two levels of aluminum. You can see there, two pieces with standoffs in between. And I showed you the underneath before, but look at that homemade wire round resistor or coil on a piece of wooden dowel, which I'm sure he measured the inductance of that and made sure it was correct for what he needed. This guy was talented, more than I am. And he made his own board just out of perf board, and did everything point to point, which I showed you. And it's kind of cool. I don't know if I showed you that before. That one transistor, all the little leads are kind of bent up and around, and they go to these little clips, and everything's point to point. Just very good construction. And all the parts, I mean, it's just excellent. There's the switch I threw in there, which it's actually a 6. You can put, well, put 4 on and off switch wires. I only use in one, but it fits and it works. I haven't powered it up yet. I've decided I'm just going to go ahead and power this up and see what happens. What the heck. The only capacitor that I'm really worried about is that one Sprague there that's plastic coated on the right and kind of nasty looking. The aluminum ones look alright. They're all low voltage, so I don't think I'm too worried about anything being fried and overheated in there. And even this one's only 75 volts. And John already powered it up because he had pictures of it online, as I mentioned. So I think I'm going to edit this video here. Now I'm on the computer, so I can edit. I'm going to set up the tripod, set up my voltmeter, and we'll power this up on live video and tack this together. See you in a minute. Okay, YouTube friends, we are set up here for the power up. I have this into my it's quasi Variac. It's actually a step transformer. It is an isolation transformer. If you can see this digital readout up here, it's putting out 90 volts, and I'm going to move away from the mic. As I turn it up, it goes up in about 5 volt increments up to, well, I can get it up to 130. I'm not going to put that through this. I'm going to put up to 120 something right there. 122, that's step 5. Okay, so back to 90. Alright. I don't actually have the power supply plugged in yet. I do have the voltage, the voltmeter across the output on the back for DC, so we can see what that's doing. Now unfortunately I do have to unplug the voltage readout because I only have one 3-way connector at the moment. Ground plug. It removes the ground because it's in the isolation transformer that doesn't have a ground. Okay, so hopefully you can see everything. I am now plugged into that. It is on the 90 volt setting, and this is the switch to turn this on, and hopefully this indicator light comes on. I think we're all set. You can see the voltage meter in the camera shot. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3. Lights on. Voltage out. Beautiful. 13.69, and that's with 90 volts AC going into it. And I see no smoke. I'm going to just bring up the Variac. .66. I don't expect that DC output to change just because the AC input's changing. It shouldn't, because it's voltage regulated on the power supply. Let's see, we're at 3. It's at 4, which is probably about 110 volts input AC. And then the last one here, that was 122, 123 voltage input. And we're still putting out a steady 13.65. And as I said, that's adjustable on the bottom, but that output is absolutely fine to power any radio. I can adjust it if need be. And I have not replaced anything in it. All I did was replace that switch that John said was bad, and indeed it was. I see no smoke. I smell no smoke. It's working just fine. And I'm inclined to just use it. It dates from the 70s. Yeah, the capacitors are from the 70s. That big gigantic one, who knows what the date is on that, but or even what it came out of. But it's probably oil filled. That's my guess. It has big lugs on it, like an oil filled one that comes out of a military piece of equipment. I'm just taking a little look around, making sure I don't see anything smoky. My voltage is steady at 13.6, and that is going to be my new power supply for my radios mainly. That'll be my main one. I'll still have other ones on tap for other things, but yeah, we're going to button that up, put it on the shelf, and I'm going to hook up my 2-meter radio to it for now and power that with it. And Bob's your uncle. Alright friends, one last shot. I have installed the power supply up on the shelf, connected to the 2-meter Kenwood TR7400A, and we will flip the switch and see what happens. Power's on, and we'll power up the radio. And she's working. We're on 147.210, which is my local repeater in the city of Hudson. The Rip Van Winkle Radio Club, which I was a member of. I didn't get to meetings, and I kind of quit paying dues, but I'm probably going to go back eventually. I do know a few of the guys in the club, and this is the club repeater, which I'm going to do something you're not supposed to really do. I'm going to kerchunk the repeater by just hitting push to talk and activating it. That was the repeater coming back to me. Fortunately, the repeater does not need a tone because this is an old radio. I think I've talked about it before. It doesn't have the proper output, although it does have an offset for transmit and receive, but it doesn't have the proper tone board in it. I don't believe you could install tone boards in these.
Good afternoon.
Oh.
The time is 3 p.m.
All right. The repeater gives the time every hour, and it is in fact 3 o'clock on the Ham Shack official clock.
This is the K2RVW repeater.
I did not plan that, but perfect timing for the video. So that is the power supply I'm currently using, and that'll power more than one radio. This doesn't put out a lot. I think it's, I don't even know. It might be 10 watts output, maybe 20. I'd have to look it up. I don't recall. But I hit the repeater. I hit repeaters in Albany with it too. I'm 22 miles from Albany. I'm about 17 miles from Hudson, where this repeater is. That's the closest repeater to me. But anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching and looking at my new power supply for the shack. 73.